The Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WinBet. If you bet $100 at WinBet, you can get a $100 free bet. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WinBet. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. We're also brought to you by the SGPN merch store. Use promo code NFC Beast for 15% off, active until the Eagles or Giants lose their next game. Good stuff. And welcome into the Fantasy Football Podcast presented by the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I'm your host, Justin Bruni. Joining me for this Week 7 preview is our senior Dynasty analyst, Dave Heilman. How are we doing, sir?
Doing great, man. I can't believe it's already Week 7. This season's flying.
Flying. We got all the sports going right now. We got basketball, we got hockey, we got NFL, baseball still rolling. So yeah, all the pillars of athletics are rolling in their national formats. It's a lot of good stuff. Games rolling every night, going back and forth from one sport to the next. But yeah, we're in fantasy football. We're at kind of like the peak of the midseason. After this week, we'll be halfway through the first half of the fantasy football season. So Keep coming back and riding with us. We've got all the good stuff for you. Dave's running Dynasty. We've got IDP. We've got trade value charts. We've got weekly rankings, injury reports, everything you guys need to get an advantage in your fantasy football league. We had a pretty exciting week, too, for Week 7. We're coming up on the trade deadline. We got to talk some CMC. CMC moving over to San Francisco. What was your kind of instant reaction to this trade from a dynasty perspective, like long-term value?
Yeah, as far as the CMC side, I mean, this is the best situation that he's ever been in. He's overcome a terrible situation from terrible quarterback play, terrible coaching, terrible offensive line, bad offense, like everything that you put on the resume that say this guy's not going to be a top guy, and he's like the top guy other than the injuries. And, of course, there's been a lot of jokes and things like that. And I will say from an Elijah Mitchell and a Jeff Wilson standpoint, don't just dismiss those guys. Right. CMC does have an injury history. Shanahan's system does tend to kind of run guys down. So don't just completely drop Jeff Wilson in your redraft leagues or drop, Elijah Mitchell. But as far as a Christian McCaffrey, I have a couple shares because he was finally cheap enough for me to get this offseason.
Right.
Pretty happy.
Feeling pretty good. Yeah, I mean, if you're a CMC owner, this isn't like a time to, start trying to sell because he's on a new team. This situation is far better than Carolina. It's so funny because I feel like if, Carolina really took the quarterback search more seriously this offseason, they're not losing all these pieces. They're not trading Robbie Anderson. They're not trading CMC. Maybe they have just a little bit of a better record, if they go after, a Marcus Mariota or a Jimmy Garoppolo just a little bit more aggressively because you see what the bottom of the position can do in comparison to literally just being in the complete dumps. This team would take Nick Mullins in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? They've got nothing going right now. So shout out to CMC for getting out of there. Week 7 implications. So CMC, Wilson Jr., and then the Carolina backfield. Obviously, I feel like no matter what, we're rolling out CMC. Even when they say oh, he may be limited, they're going to get him on the field. They're going to use him. I feel like it might be the last week to start Jeff Wilson. I don't feel like he's a safe start. I feel still like he's a fringe start this week. But in comparison to what I would feel right now for Week 7 versus what I know I'll feel like for Week 8, I feel like this is kind of a last-ditch effort to get him in your lineups with some level of certainty. And then who do you have the most confidence in Carolina?
Yeah, I would definitely, for Carolina, I'm definitely more a Deonta Foreman over a Chuba Hubbard. But and that this whole offseason, that's what I've been telling people to do. And so I've been kind of tracking their dynasty rostership. And, when the news happened, that's the first thing I did was I went to Sleeper. I searched Deonta Foreman. I searched Chuba Hubbard to see if they were available in any of my leagues. Did the same thing with MFL. Just because there's some leagues that they might be in. Of course, the ones they were in would probably redraft. I'm not as interested.
Right.
I don't think people can just expect a Mike Davis situation. This is a different coaching staff, a different offensive coordinator. And Deonta Foreman could go in there and get the bulk of the work. We also have McAdoo, who not a fan. Don't know what he's going to do. We have Wilkes is there. It's a totally different regime. You could see a 50-50 split. You could see a ride the hot hand approach where it's kind of a different guy every week.
Right.
If you have the ability to roster both, do it and kind of see what happens. But I'm not really starting any of them with certainty to get Tampa Bay this week, which is like the worst possible scenario. And you've given me a lot of start sits here that are tough. And I wouldn't start Jeff Wilson or Deonta Foreman or Chuba Hubbard over any of those guys.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if I'm desperate, Foreman would be the guy that I would trust more so.
100%.
Just from a talent aspect, what we saw from him last season, and just the fact that they went out and got him like this offseason. Like it seemed like either a trade like this was in the plans, or just having him being used as a regular tool in the offense was, at one point supposed to be their plan. So I feel safer with him. But yeah, man, it's got to be in a deep format. I've got to be hurting with injuries, buys, etc., for me to get him in my lineup. But let's jump right into the start sit questions. You mentioned that these are going to be tough. We don't make it easy over here at the Fantasy Football Podcast. So let's dive right in. We got first up, Trevor Lawrence versus the Giants, or Jimmy Garoppolo versus Kansas City. Definitely feeling a little bit better about Jimmy with CMC in the lineup. I had him at quarterback 20 to start the week. I feel like I need to move him up maybe 4 or 5 spots now with CMC in the lineup. Don't necessarily love the matchup for Trevor Lawrence going up against the Giants, who have been relatively successful against the quarterback position. But which way are you leaning here between these two?
Yeah, I think people look at the paper and they see these playing the Giants and they just instantly want to go with Trevor Lawrence. They've been tough. Aaron Rodgers had a tough time against the Giants. Lamar Jackson. It's not just the bad teams that people have struggled. That being said, I do think it's pretty close, and I would take Jimmy Garoppolo just because of the high scoring nature of the game. He's not going to have to throw the ball super deep for him to get a whole bunch. He's just going to have to check it down to CMC, Debo, and Kittle and let them do the rest. And
Right.
Ayuk has been really good. And I think, in this matchup, there's going to be a lot of scores. I'm going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo in the higher scoring game.
Yeah, so Fantasy Pros had Lawrence at quarterback 12, Jimmy at 13. I actually had Lawrence still at 12. He still played very well last week, but you had mentioned it. The Giants have been very good on defense, especially against the quarterback position. They've allowed the 10th fewest amount of fantasy points to the quarterback position. Kansas City, conversely, they've allowed the 3rd most. So much better matchup. Jimmy gets the upgrade with CMC in there. The red zone passing offense is going to take a huge leap forward for the San Francisco 49ers now with CMC there. Like, you have these yak guys, the yards after catch guys, and Kittle and Debo there already. So they can get you down into those positions. But it always felt like the 49ers would always stall in the scoring zone, right down in the red zone, because everyone knows they're just going to try to run it down your throat, or maybe try to get like some type of trickery involved in there. But now when you have a pass catcher like CMC down there, that, he's just so silky with his movements, getting in and out of the tackles, creating space and speed for himself, knowing when to go fast, knowing when to slow down. Like, I mean, the dude's just like the A1 of his position. So I feel like that's going to give them a lot more help inside the scoring zone. And you might actually see, Jimmy throw a couple extra touchdowns, going forward here. Definitely someone that you should upgrade in more of a single or regular season aspect as well with Jimmy.
Yeah. And I have it 10 and 12 in my rankings. So these guys are both guys that you can start this week. I think Lawrence does a little bit on his legs, enough to get it done. And the Giants aren't they're not the 85 Bears or anything. They're still going to let up some points, but
Right.
they're not letting up these monster quarterback performances that we've seen in the past.
I would still put Lawrence for under 2 passing touchdowns this week. Like, I like what I've seen from the Giants secondary. You've seen some issues there with the Jags more recently. Obviously, Lawrence had a good week last week, but obviously a different opponent as well. So we'll see what we get. Sounds like we're both leaning Jimmy, but there's probably going to be a lot of start sit options where you're starting Lawrence over your bench takes. All right, next up, we've got Ramondre Stevenson versus Josh Jacobs. Stevenson gets the Bears and Jacobs gets the Texans. Damian Harris is active? What's going on there? He's already back. I figured he was going to be gone for a couple of weeks. Any concern there for starting Stevenson going forward?
There's some, and part of that is just because it's the Patriots and Belichick. I know McDaniels is not there anymore, so you don't have him calling the shots, and we're seeing a different type of an offense from the Patriots. I think Stevenson's still the the starter there, and I'm not dropping him out of my top 24. But for me, that Harris being back and the thought of him, Stevenson doing all the work and then Harrison getting 3 TDs is there. And so Jacobs versus the Houston Texans is a pretty juicy matchup. And so I'm going to take that one without the fear of someone taking over. And he's been so involved in the passing game recently.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard for me to stay off of Jacobs here. If Stevenson didn't have Dame coming back, I would say fire up Stevenson without a blink of an eye. I mean, where you drafted these guys, you didn't spend high draft capital, so it's likely that they're going to be flex options in a lot of leagues. Between the two, like if it comes down to putting one on your bench versus the other, I would still lean over Jacobs. Both matchups are great. Chicago giving up the 9th most fantasy points to the running back position. Houston, they've given up the 3rd, and both are just bleeding yards on the ground. So a lot of opportunity for both sides here. I'm going to go with Jacobs, though. I like just their offense a little bit more. You get the trust of the quarterback, the receivers. You don't necessarily have that feeling with the Patriots. Like there could be some shorter drives for them still because you have an inexperienced quarterback. You have lesser talented receivers. So I think just the overall situation for Jacobs is just very, very good this week. All right, we're going to hit a quick word from our sponsors. We'll be right back after this. Thinking of joining WynnBET? Now is the perfect time because new customers who bet $100 get a $100 free bet. If you're looking to join the WynnBET Biggest Winners Club, whoever hits the biggest parlay on WynnBET odds-wise gets a $1,000 free bet. Last week, one of the biggest winners was an New York bettor who hit a plus 15066 parlay on all money line wagering $110 to win $16,743. Big winner. WynnBET is truly for DGens only. There's so much to choose from, and all you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET so they know that we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. Offer subject to change, terms and conditions at wynnbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call 1-800-522-4700. All right, we're back. We're doing some starter sits. We were moving on to the wide receiver position. We've got Mike Williams versus Seattle or Tyler Lockett versus the Chargers. A little same game pick here. Tyler Lockett been missing practice, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, Lockett's been in and out of he's on the injury report, and so that definitely could seal the deal on this one. Just the fact that he may not even play.
Right.
I'll try to get an updated injury on him.
Yeah. So Fantasy Pros has these guys 13 and 15, Williams in favor by a couple of spots here. They're both coming off of really bad performances. They both had 2 catches for 17 yards last week. Lockett had 5 targets. Williams had 6. Doesn't really matter, but like they were big fall offs from their previous games. Let's just say they're both healthy. Which would you expect to bounce back in a game where they're playing each other?
I'm going to give the nod to Mike Williams. He's, Keenan Allen sounds like he's not going to play. I know there was a tough matchup last week and Williams didn't do his thing, but I think he bounces back. Lockett is a guy that I was definitely wrong on this offseason, and he's someone that he's been very good. And Geno obviously has been very good. But yeah, Lockett with a hamstring injury. I'm going to go with a guy that's healthy. He did not participate in practice yesterday.
Yeah, pretty simple one there. And when I put it together, I didn't realize that Lockett was banged up, but I thought it would be interesting because of their stats last week, just kind of like their ebb and flow through the past 3 weeks. It would be a good comparison. But yeah, pretty much a teed up for you there to pick Williams over Lockett. Would you do the same thing, Williams over Metcalf, just for sake of conversation?
Yeah, that is a good conversation, and
I think Metcalf is probably a couple of spots ahead of Williams in rankings.
Yeah, looking at my rankings now to see how I have it.
I had Lockett at 13, and I had Williams at 12 prior to the injury news. So,
yeah, I have Williams above Lockett, but after actually one spot above Metcalf. So I have Williams one spot above Metcalf.
So pretty close. I was wrong on Metcalf. He's having a great season so far. I guess I could say I was right on Lockett because I just said like he would be preferred. Like he's a guy that you can target there, so he was a safe target. But yeah, no one was on Geno Smith. None of us were banking on that. Been fun still. I think they've scored like the 7th most or 6th most points in the NFL.
Yeah, and Geno's outlook for next year is interesting. I put that in my article that's coming out where, people feel like it feels like Geno's 50 years old. He's 32.
It's been
Like
around a bit.
he's younger than a lot of these other guys. And there's going to be some open seats as far as quarterback positions. And you could see him get a short-term deal like a Mariota or something like that, where he is a starter next year, or he's the bridge guy if Seattle goes with somebody else. But, right now, Seattle's not – they don't have the number 1 pick. And if they keep playing well, they might play themselves out of, the top 3 quarterbacks. Right. And after the top 3 quarterbacks, there's not anyone that looks like a day 1 starter. And so you could see Geno play next year. I got him for 2/3 in a league that we're in. I mean, you can still get him super cheap, and he could be a starter next year.
I think you offered me a 2nd and a 3rd for him. Couldn't do it. Man, I've been having some tough time with trades. I offered a 2nd-round pick for this upcoming season, not even like a futures, for David Njoku. Couldn't get it done.
People are tough, man. Everyone wants to win the trade. They're so worried about winning the trade. At the end of the season, they're going to wish they traded a lot of these guys.
I know it. We're going to get to some trades here pretty soon. Speaking of winners and losers, a couple more start sits here. Tight end. This one's pretty easy too, but they're very close in rankings. Rob Tonyan at Washington at the Commandos, or Pat Freiermuth coming back for the Steelers at Miami. Freiermuth is ranked, I feel like, kind of high for coming back from injury. He's Fantasy Pros tight end 11. I have him at 13, but I guess when you look at this position, like, it's like the top 8, top 9 guys, and then it's just a big shelf that you just fall off. I don't know. Which way are you going here?
Yeah, I'm going to follow the targets, and I'm going to go with Tonyan on this one.
Right.
More than Nate. Yeah, I'm going to go with Tonyan on this one just because I'm following the targets here. He got 10 targets last week, and with Freiermuth, you do get Kenny Pickett coming back. There was reports earlier in the week that he wasn't going to play, and it was going to be Trubisky. It actually is going to be Kenny Pickett, and it should be a pretty high scoring game.
Bring in Mitch to close the game. I like it. It's a closer.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I got to go Tonyan here too. It's not even just the targets. He leads the Packers in catches. I had no clue. He leads the Packers in receptions. That's insane. I mean, Romeo Dubes, Lazard, they're like right there. Aaron Jones is not that far behind either, but still, like, I mean, I can't say that any tight end is safe, but if there's somebody that feels safe this week that wasn't like a top 10 option in weeks prior, it's definitely Rob Tonyan here. Going to stay away from Freiermuth for probably a game or so just to see, the quarterback situation kind of unfold. Is Pickett still going to be the guy? Obviously, Mitch came in and played well at the end of that last game. For all I know, Mason Rudolph's going to be the QB in a couple of weeks. I have no idea. So just doesn't feel like a situation you want to buy into, with a lot of confidence. All right, last up here, we got a flex pick. Drake London at Cincinnati, Terry McLaurin at home with Green Bay, or Tony Pollard versus Detroit. London and McLaurin coming off, a couple of pretty bad weeks, like consecutive bad weeks here. Pollard, is it his week? Is it Zeke's week? Like, who's going to kind of have that booming performance? Which way are you going here with these 3 guys?
I'll say the easiest one to remove from the equation is London for me. He's just been too hit or miss. Mariota's not throwing the ball. It's not enough volume.
Right.
McLaurin gets Heineke, and that is very interesting. Last year, McLaurin, he got targeted like crazy. I know that 50% of the targets were like competitive catches where he was they're basically saying he had no separation, but Heineke was like, I don't care.
It's like 75% target share. It's all you, buddy.
Yeah, like McLaurin got targeted so much with Heineke in there that I'm going to go with McLaurin. We just don't ever know what Dallas is going to do there. And I know Tony Pollard is one play away from making me wrong, but he's also one play away from making me right. Because it really just takes that big play with Pollard because he's not getting enough volume. And I think, Heineke's a gunslinger. He's going to go out there and he's going to throw it. He's trying to throw 3 interceptions, but he's going to throw the ball 30, 40 times, and half of those are going to go to Terry McLaurin.
Heineke was saying before the season starts, I don't have a chance to play. I'm not going to get to play. They spent all this money on this guy that's not very good, so I won't get to play, even though he's not very good. I'm hoping he comes in with a chip on his shoulder because I have plenty of shares of Terry. But in this pick, I am going to go with Pollard just because I love the matchup up against Detroit. Detroit allowing the second most fantasy points to the running back position. I feel like it's very much up, very good chance that Pollard is the boomer this week. Like he's going to have the big performance. Zeke could steal one in the red zone. It feels like it's definitely plausible with this, really thin Detroit rushing defense. But I expect Pollard to get a handful of catches and find pay dirt this week. I agree with absolutely everything that you're saying about McLaurin. I just don't love the matchup. Could see a lot of Jair Alexander. Obviously, Heineke could throw the ball up, but like you said, he's inefficient. Could also run quite a bit too. He's got some juice in his legs, so we'll see what happens there. But very even for me. So I have McLaurin at 25 or wide receiver 25, Pollard at running back 21. So splitting hairs there. Agree with you. Definitely going to be holding off on London in this one. Easy one out. All right, let's grade some trades. Let's look at some swaps here. One of these trades was from one of my leagues this week, but two were not. So we'll just jump right in and see what you think of these, Dave. First up, side A, Allen Lazard, Najee Harris. 4, side B, Leonard Fournette. Which side are you looking to grab?
So is this a redraft trade?
Yes, they're all redraft trades.
So these are all redraft trades. If that is the case, I'm going to take Fournette over Allen Lazard and Najee Harris. Najee Harris has been super inefficient. He's not getting targeted like he was, and he was really a compiler last year. He was not very efficient. He only had 30 goal line touches. He's had 95 receptions. 95 targets last year. So I'm gonna go with Fournette. They're using and abusing him, and he's on the better offense than both those guys.
Yeah, I gotta agree. Fournette's a top 5 running back right now. It's very difficult to get off of that, and the amount of volume that he's getting, and just the lack of competition for touches. I'm not going to sit here and say that there's some type of decline in like Tom Brady's play. I know everyone's like reading in, to the tea leaves and there's a divorce and all the team's not playing well and the offensive line isn't that great. Like, guys, they're 3-3. Like they're going to be just fine. They're going to figure it out. They have one of the best quarterbacks at his position of all time, behind the line of scrimmage. So they're going to be just fine. Give me Fournette. They pass the ball a ton. Brady's passed the ball 40 times in 4 straight games. A lot of opportunity in the passing game. Goal line touches. Just very easy for me. I like the idea of Lazard, but I still feel like the touchdown percentage at some point just has to come down. Like, he's not getting it targeted a ton, but he's getting enough work to where like he's a reliable wide receiver 2 week in and week out, in my opinion. That's just not enough for me. Najee Harris is more flirting with RB2, RB3 or worse. So yeah, for me, I'm leaning Fournette as well. Next up, this one actually is in a keeper league. So side A is Saquon Barkley and DeAndre Hopkins, Side B is Jahan Dotson, Darnell Mooney, Devin Singletary, and Aaron Donald. So also an IDP league. I know what side you're taking here, but can you do this trade? Like, would this be veto worthy for you?
Yeah, I'm not a veto person, so I would definitely have some questions. I do play with some IDP, but I'm not going to pretend that I'm an IDP guy. And so Aaron Donald's value is interesting, but Aaron Donald is also someone that like almost walked away from football just a couple months ago. So I'm taking the Barkley and Hopkins side. Hopkins obviously came back in a huge way, and I'm interested, did this trade happen before or after the Hopkins blow up?
Before.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that they were probably kicking themselves a little bit, and they probably thought they were getting over on this guy for the Hopkins thing.
Yeah, I don't know what they were getting over. It was a big veto in one of my trades this week, caused a big ruckus. And I always like to bring in some of the unfair swaps, I feel like. And, the team that was giving away Barkley and Hopkins was also 0-6. They haven't won a game. Those 4 players that they're getting, don't make your team better. You know what I mean? Darnell Mooney, complete boomer bust. Jahan Dotson, also injured, complete boomer bust. Devin Singletary is the most safe asset in the trade, and you have no idea what he's going to give you week in and week out. He doesn't have a safe floor, Yeah, I don't know where they were going with this one, but there was definitely some feelings, a little hurt. Some people took it a little more seriously than they should, but I just thought it would be a fun review, given the fact that, pretty much every trade we put up here is pretty close. This one ain't it.
No, and this is one where if you're a competitor and you see another competitor, like a contender, get this trade, and they just added Saquon and DeAndre Hopkins for a bunch of bench players
for nothing,
you're pretty upset about it. And this is where I don't want to take the show off the rails, but this is where tanking can get frustrating in your leagues, because you're seeing guys not only give away free wins, but people are loading up, and the trades, the values can be all over the place.
I typically don't hate on tanking, especially when the team is winless. Because at one point you weren't winless, if like the 2-5s, the 1-6s, and then you beat me, you 1-6 team. You know what I mean? Like in week one, like that will drive me crazy, because it's like, oh, great, I had to lose to the team while they were competing in the first week of the season. They didn't compete for the next 5 weeks, but yet I had to take the L, because they were so excited after their draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm seeing the guy he's scoring 65 points and beating somebody, and I scored 165 and lost, and I'm like, okay, that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to go with the Barkley and Hopkins side here. If I'm giving suggestions, like if I'm going to veto a trade, I always say, like, listen, it's not for me like to say like, oh, I'm vetoing this trade because my team will be less competitive because this other team is going to get Barkley or Hopkins. It really is an balanced trade, and that's why I would veto. I don't veto for the sake of it. Like, I hate the veto button. But what I would say is that just drop one of those top players, and it's a little bit more fair. Take Barkley out of the trade. It's a little bit more fair. Take Hopkins out of the trade. It's a little bit more fair. It's not a good swap, I'd say, still, but at least, you're not doubling down on 2 top 10 assets at their position for just, bench fodder.
Yeah.
Even the 1 for 4, even the 1 for 4 wouldn't be great, but it would just be a little bit more fair. So that was my big take after I told the 2 people we should fine them for this terrible trade. But
yeah, this is the classic. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of stuff, and you're going to give me something good. Like, exactly. I don't know if the guy was like, man, I'm getting like 5 players. And like, no, like this is like giving a kid $5 and then taking the 20 from him.
It's like, no, it's like that video is like, I put down 20, you put down 20, I buy it for 50 or whatever. We both make $10. Like, no. One of you lost $10. Damn it. Stop it. I did a 3-for-1 not that long ago. DJ Moore, James Robinson, and Brandon Cooks for Tyreek Hill. I'm not feeling great about that, but I like what I saw from those 3 assets that I got, prior to doing the trade, other than DJ Moore, who I'm really hoping gets traded here soon. My God.
Same.
The last straw. All right. One more trade here, and then we're going to get into some over-under picks. A.J. Dillon for Eli Mitchell and Jeff Wilson. Seems like a good swap. I like this one.
Yeah, I mean, A.J. Dillon's another guy that a lot of people were wrong on. We all expected A.J. Dillon to – I wasn't as high as he was going to be a top 12 running back, but I did think A.J. Dillon was going to be a top 24 running back as they leaned more on the running game than the passing game, with all the changes and as they were developing these. But we also expected this to be a much better offense. And they're not scoring a lot of points. There's not a lot of red zone opportunities. There's not a lot of opportunities in general. There's not an efficient offense. And Eli Mitchell and Jeff Wilson. So for me, I think it's very even. And it would depend on what my roster looks like. Like A.J. Dillon, you can't start him right now. I don't think you can start Eli Mitchell or Jeff Wilson right now. But if I have CMC, I want side B. If I have Aaron Jones, I want side A.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like if you're in a cuffing situation where you can double down and, lock up a whole backfield, very easy here. Yeah. If you have Jones, you want to get A.J. Dillon. If you have CMC, you want to shore up the 49ers backfield. Standalone value, I would still take Dillon just because I feel like, his floor would be safer week in and week out, given the fact that he's just in a 2-man tandem rather than a 3-man tandem. And there's been plenty of times where the Packers are just completely in favor of A.J. Dillon over Aaron Jones. Makes me sick, but they do it. So, we got to keep that.
And I want to know what size the benches are, because if you have Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson sitting on your bench, like I was actually thinking earlier today about, doing a handcuff rankings article. And, but if you have a 6 bench, and you have two of them with these backups, like hoping that CMC gets hurt, like that's not a good situation. Like if you AJ Dillon, you're going to get a plus because you can go pick somebody up off waivers. So it's not just AJ Dillon for these two guys. You're going to be able to fill that spot. But if there's only 5 or 6 bench spots, you're giving 2 of them to backup running backs. I'm not, you know.
Well, technically, Mitchell would still be on the IR, so you can at least use that slot.
True.
So you can throw him down there until he gets back. Which I'm more concerned about. That's the only thing I would be concerned about with the two players is that at some point, they are going to be splitting work behind CMC. We always say like, oh, CMC can be used as a receiver. He'll come out of the slot and then they can use those other guys as running backs. That's not going to be the case in San Francisco. They've never done anything like that in the Shanahan offense. Yeah, each guy will get touches, sporadically. CMC getting the most, easily over 20 a game, but you're not going to know week in and week out which one of those guys it's going to be behind him, because Wilson Jr. has been a guy for the 49ers for multiple years now. They've relied on him, and had him answer the call many times. Eli Mitchell was impressive last season, so I would imagine that all those guys are going to touch the ball, at some point upon, full return. When everybody's healthy, they're going to have a three-headed monster back there. Albeit the three-headed monster, the two lower pieces may only have like 4 or 5 touches, but still they could, nag production from CMC or from each other. All right, going to go in another round of reads here from our sponsors. We'll be right back after this. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em contests versus other people for a shot at winning $250,000 plus in cash. Download the app, choose a contest, and select your player props to earn points for correct picks and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. Sign up now with promo code SGPN at nohouseadvantage.com. Or download the app on the App Store or Digital Play Store to get your first deposit match up to $25.
If you're like me and there's a foreign language that you regret not learning in school, it's never too late. Start with Babbel. Babbel is the language learning app that's sold more than 10 million subscriptions. Thanks to Babbel's addictively fun and easy bite-sized language lessons, you can finally cross learning that new language off of your list. I know myself, I live in a household with 2 different languages. My wife's first language is Spanish. My first language is English. And my son is learning both. And so for me to keep up with the family, Babbel is the perfect tool. I'm learning, she's learning. With Babbel, you only need 10 minutes to complete a lesson. You can start having a real-life conversation in new languages as little as 3 weeks. Other language learning apps use AI for their lesson plans, but Babbel lessons were created by over 150 language experts and voiced by real native speakers, not computers. Their teaching method has been scientifically proven to be effective. With Babbel, you can choose from 14 different languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, and German. Plus, Babbel's speech recognition technology helps you to improve your pronunciation and accent. There are so many ways to learn with Babbel. In addition to lessons, you can access podcasts, games, videos, stories, and even live classes. Plus, it comes with a 20-day money-back guarantee. Start your new language journey today with Babbel. And right now, you can get up to 55% off your subscription when you go to babbel.com/SGP. That's babbel.com/SGP for up to 55% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life.
If you watch football, then you need Fubo TV. Fubo TV gives you the complete coverage of college and pro football with NFL Red Zone, plus games in 4K at no extra charge. Over 100 channels of live sports and entertainment for a fraction of the price of cable. Watch on all your devices and never miss a game or an episode of your favorite shows with the included cloud-based DVR. Plus, there's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. Right now, you can try Fubo TV free for 7 days and get 15% off your first month. Just go to FuboTV.com/SGP. That's FuboTV.com/SGP.
Let's talk about OddsTrader. OddsTrader is a place you can compare all odds from all major sportsbooks. You can also compare the different sign-up codes and promotions from sportsbooks to get the best deal. The app that provides player statistics, key game stats, injury reports, and projected game day weather for bettors to make the most informed bets possible. It also is a bet tracker, so bettors can keep track of their records for all of your games and your betting activity. Remember, At Odds Trader, you can have handicapping, play-by-play updates, live scores and bet tracking, player statistics, key game statistics, projected game day weather. Winter is coming. You're going to want to know what's going on with these outdoor games, especially with Bruni's Bears. Bet Tracker allows you to keep records of all your games and betting activity. Go to oddstrader.com/Blue Wire. Odds Trader, the #1 site for all your game day bets.
Bruni Bears, but he's rocking all Raiders today.
I know. You look like you're in the Raiders Stadium.
I am. Allegiant, baby. The Death Star meets mid-century modern.
It's pretty sharp.
It's all right. We get by. All right, we're back. We're talking fantasy football over-unders. We're looking at underdog projections. These are picks that you can throw out into your underdog slates. I know they do, 4, 5, 10, 20 times your payment pick. So let's jump right in here. We're looking at fantasy points only. First up, Dave's guy, Danny Dimes Jones, 15.45. Jacksonville has given up the 17th most fantasy points to the quarterback position. Is he going over or under that total this week? You got yourself muted, sir.
Sorry, we got smoothies going on. We got, he's had an ankle injury, and we've seen him not run as much recently. But 2 weeks into the ankle injury, I think you're going to see him run more. And with how he's run the football this year, I think he can easily get that. And he's also, he's been pretty efficient in the red zone, not only with his legs, but he's also throwing the ball to Saquon Barkley, Daniel Bellinger. He's been used a lot. Wan'Dale Robinson is back. And so I definitely think he can hit that mark. I don't think it's too big. And I do think underdog goes with a 4-point passing touchdown scoring.
I like him to go over this one. For some reason, Dan Jones has felt more safe than usual these past couple of weeks, and I just like what their team's been putting together. Their defense puts their offense in very good positions to score. So I'm going to go with the over. I feel like it's a little bit more risky, but I like the matchup at Jacksonville, and I just like the the edge that the Giants have been playing with recently. So I'll go to the over there. I like it a lot. Next up, we have Dameon Pierce at Las Vegas. 13.75 fantasy points. Feels low for a guy that's going to get well over 20 touches in a game. I like the over here.
Yeah, I like the over as well. He's really taking full grasp of this backfield. He was the backup to Burkhead. Then they were about 50-50. And then the last 2 weeks, it's been him. He's had over 100 total yards. He hasn't scored a whole bunch of touchdowns. And you don't expect that in this Houston offense. He's not going to score a whole bunch of touchdowns, but he's getting the volume. And he's also, with those 100 yards, he's also got 20 plus touches. So you don't never want to chase touchdowns. You want to chase opportunity. And when you're getting someone that's getting 4 or 5 targets a game plus 15 to 20 carries, I think 13 points is low.
I agree. I feel like it's very low for underdog in consideration of the volume that he's going to be getting. I also love the over 67.5 rushing yards. Also love the over 12.5 receiving yards, which are picks that you can also get on underdog. So those are good picks for me. I would take any one of those. Think that the fantasy points is probably the safest, to be honest, though. Next up, we have Juju Smith-Schuster, who's coming off a big week. He scored a touchdown last week, but not a favorable matchup up against the San Francisco 49ers. His total is sitting at a low number of 10.95. I think it's going to come close, and I feel like that defense gives me enough lack of confidence to take the under here. What say you?
Yeah, I think I'd be more comfortable with the receptions total than I am, because this is going to be a high-scoring game. They're going to be up and down the field, and that's where Juju excelled last week. But with this, you don't know what the yardage is going to look like. Like last week, he broke one and got the touchdown, and that's what made him have a big week. Like he hasn't had 50-yard touchdowns. It was a 2-yard route. He just made the guy miss and ran down.
Exactly.
So, I would be more comfortable with the over on the receptions, but I'll take the under on the fantasy points. He hasn't hit that number, but once or twice this year.
Right, exactly. And that's what it is for me, is the lack of consistency, and really just more so the consistency of secondaries being able to kind of hone in on Juju and MVS and really take away the deep ball from Mahomes and just make him check down and hurt you with the underneath look. So I'm not confident in Juju. Honestly, I would probably stay off the receptions as well. He's just not someone that I feel comfortable starting or taking props on this week against San Francisco. It might be a high scoring matchup, but I feel like those receivers may not be doing much. It might be a big tight end and running back week for the Kansas City Chiefs. And speaking of tight end, our last position here, we've got big Mark Andrews, 16.95 against the Cleveland Browns. This is also a tough one for me. My inclination says to go to the over, but I feel like it's a pretty tall number, and they might be able to keep him out of the end zone this week. What do you think?
Yeah, this is one where if you don't score a touchdown, you miss it. The last 2 weeks at Cincinnati, he had 8 catches, 89 yards, a touchdown, 18.9 points. He had 7 catches, 106 against the Giants, a touchdown, 20.1 points. So he was able to easily hit those, but if he doesn't score, he misses on both occasions. So this is where you could go with the under and play it safe and just think, he doesn't get in the end zone. Jackson has been banged up. Andrews has missed some practice time this week, but they've said it's clearly just rest.
Yeah, and he said as much as well. Like, he's comfortable, his body feels ready to go. That's all that it was. Again, we're in the midpoint of the fantasy football season. They're coming up on almost halfway through their regular season in the NFL. So that's gonna definitely come into play here, more so for the stars, right? For the key assets on any offense or defense. So nothing really to be worried about there. But the matchup is more beneficial, I think, to the defense. The Cleveland Browns have allowed the 6th fewest fantasy points to the tight end position, mostly because they're keeping them out of the end zone. Like Dave pointed out, without that, it's going to be difficult for him to go over that number. So this is another under for me as well. Like the receiving yards at 73.5, but even that feels kind of risky. I don't know. And they're not giving out his catches just yet. So that might be something that you want to play a little bit closer to the chest and wait for the final numbers to roll out on Sunday, because they're going to definitely do an update, offer some more props, etc. All right.
Well,
that was a good one.
Going back to the yards, Cooper versus Andrews, just so everyone knows, you can play rivals, and so you can pick players from the same game, players from the same team. And so they have Amari Cooper versus Mark Andrews, but they're giving Amari Cooper plus 17.5. So do you think Andrews can have as much, given that Andrews gets 17.5 point spread, do you think that Andrews can beat the spread against Cooper for yards?
No, I don't think so. Not in that matchup. Just because the secondary for the Ravens has been pretty weak. They're dealing with injuries. Obviously, Cooper and Njoku are the main targets there. So Cooper gets plus 17.5, right? That's what you'd said.
Yep.
If that number was closer to 8.5, 9, I would probably take Andrews. But when you're getting that close to 20 plus extra yards, like that's a player too for Andrews. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I would feel safe taking Cooper there. That's a big spread.
Yep. I'll agree with that. And then I'll go.
And I'm not a Cooper guy. I am not an Amari Cooper guy. So for be as clear as possible. Like, I don't have a ton of confidence in that. But when you're getting the spread, when they try to give you the mind game, like you don't want to buy into the players as much as the numbers that you want to buy.
And then I'll just tell everybody, go take every Tampa Bay over. They play Carolina this week. That team is just completely given up. Half the team is on the trade block. I mean, Tom Brady thrown, you said 40 plus times 2 weeks in a row, or 3 weeks in a row?
4 weeks in a row. Yeah, I know. I was very shocked by that.
Chris Godwin looks really good. He's finally back, and Mike Evans is going to eat. Like that offense is just they're going to score 40 points.
I would love to see it, and Tom is angry. Tom is not happy.
He's an angry Tom.
You got Ben Roethlisberger talking that smack, saying, hey, he doesn't look like he's in it. Doesn't look like his head's in it. He doesn't look right. I'll show you, you old man, you old retired bastard.
He will.
All right. Been a good one. Appreciate you coming on, sir. Let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter and anything else that you're working on.
At Dynasty Dorks. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok, and all the socials. And then SGPN Fantasy. And make sure you guys check out the YouTube channel. If you're listening, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, comment. Let us know. We got some giveaways coming up.
Yep, absolutely. We got shows coming out pretty much every day. We've got the good stuff for you. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com, smash the fantasy tab. You can find Dave's Dynasty content. We've got IDP. We've got weekly rankings for Dynasty and for redraft. We've got trade value charts. We've got injury reports. We've got everything that you need to stay ahead of the competition on a week by week and season long and multi-year format. So please come ride with us. We appreciate all the support. Be sure to download this video, smash the like buttons, share out all of our posts and all of our videos. You can find me on Twitter at SGPNJB. Take care, be well, be good. If you can't be good at it. We'll see you.
Good luck this season.